Why the hell didn't Warner Brothers hire Andy Muschietti to take part in the DC universe a long time ago? He is a terrific choice to be a director for one of these movies, specifically I think with The Flash, because The Flash is engineered right from the beginning by Zack Snyder as a bit of a goofball. He is in the Zack Snyder Justice League movies and the Batman vs. Superman, the first introduction that we get to him. And Ezra Miller, I think, it has a really good time chewing the scenery as this very funny couple of characters. And I'm not going to spoil anything about this movie in this review, by the way. I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about the stuff that we know about the plot and some of the stuff that they revealed in trailers. But I will tell you that we had a really good time. And when I'm saying we, I'm talking about my whole family. My 11-year-old daughter and my wife and I went to see this together. And my wife explicitly said that this was one of the most enjoyable superhero things that she's ever watched. She knows I'm obsessed with superhero movies and TV shows. And generally, she tolerates a lot of these things that I take her to or we watch together. But this one, she was laughing and smiling, and there is such a lightness to this movie. There are goofy bits all the way through it. Christina Hodson is the writer here. She wrote the screenplay. She wrote Bumblebee, which I really enjoyed. I thought the script for Birds of Prey was pretty cool, although I didn't love the movie. And she also wrote that ill-fated Batgirl movie, which Warner Brothers canceled, which I still really want to see. But I really enjoyed the takes in this film, because one of the things that the movie sets up is they'll posit some weird, goofy sequence, and then they will just commit to it, and they will stay with it, and they'll just keep tapping on a joke or some weird character that they introduce until you're just kind of overwhelmed by it and you end up laughing. I mean, it's just so goofy and silly, and it undermines a little bit of the drama and the high stakes that are presented, because clearly what we're talking about here is the Flash playing with space and time and creating chaos that somehow has to be solved and figured out. And of course, we know that this movie also exists to cameo some Batmen in it, because we know Ben Affleck and especially Michael Keaton play a big role in this movie. And there's a new super person that's introduced. Sasha Calle plays Supergirl, and she's got some fantastic action sequences in this. And we also see that General Zod is an important figure in this movie, so it kind of parallels some of the events that we saw in Man of Steel in some interesting ways, in some smart ways. And then there might be some other cameos that you may or may not have heard about, but I'm not going to dig too deep into that. And as a concept, I think it's pretty cool to kind of monkey with time like this, a la Back to the Future, and see what kinds of weird things start happening and where the tangents might start to create real consternation for the characters. And everybody does a good job kind of grappling with the ramifications of what the Flash has done. And it's a lot of fun to kind of see this movie unspool and all of these weird directions and twists and turns and familiarities that are pivoted. And so it's slightly different and it's a little bit strange. But the whole time you're watching this, there is a smile on your face. But I do have to say that visually there are highs and lows in this. I think some of the speed effects of the Flash are pretty darn cool. But I also have to say there are some lo-fi looking visual effects in here that aren't even up to speed with some of the cut sequences that we get in video games, which is no longer an insult, by the way, because video games look incredible now. But it is weird to see a big budget movie like this, something that probably costs a couple $100 million or more to make, and visually there were some shortcuts made, and it's clear, and it takes you out, I have to say, because the movie presents a lot. It gives you a lot to soak up and to look at and to kind of dazzle you with, but the visual effects undermine that, and it's frustrating because good work is in here, including, and I do have to say this, as problematic an individual as Ezra Miller has been over the last several years, and it's all over the news, and it's hard to push that aside and not think about that while you're watching this movie. They are very good in this movie, and there's a lot asked of them. They've got a lot of emotional points to hit. This whole enterprise would crumble if you're not along for the ride and if you didn't believe in this persona, in this character that Ezra Miller creates. And they do a good job with it. They really do. And so I think that even adds to the frustration and the heartbreak about this whole thing. It's brutal. I mean, there's an empathy that you have about this person, but there's also real concern for what this person has decided to do outside of this sphere. But clearly, there was a lot of pressure, and I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just looking at what I witnessed in this movie. Clearly, there was a lot of pressure because they're in almost every scene in the movie, and they have a lot to do. Michael Keaton is also terrific in this movie. A lot of his work, though, is quips and catchphrases and things like that, and I think that the actor can mine more, and they could have used more from this actor. But in terms of building Batman and sort of taking advantage of our 1989 version of Batman, they do some fantastic stuff in this movie. In fact, the Batman that Michael Keaton creates and the Batman that Ben Affleck create are two of the standouts in this film. They're fantastic. The action that Batman gets to do is absolutely wonderful. Of course, he gets to play with those wonderful toys as well. And so I had a big smile on my face with the Bat stuff. And I'm very happy to hear that Andy Muschietti is tapped to direct the Brave and the Bold movie. I can't wait to see what he does with that one. And I was also impressed by Sasha Calle. I think she's terrific. She totally commands the screen. They gave her an awesome haircut, so she's always looking out through her bangs, and she's been affected by the world around her, and she's kind of carrying it with her, but she has this immense power, and she's not afraid to use it, and there's some really cool action sequences with her abilities, which I really enjoyed. And I would not be unhappy to see more from Michael Keaton and more from Sasha Calle and more from Ben Affleck as Batman if James Gunn and Peter Safran decide to go that way. But of course, that's also part of this stew. When you're watching this movie, nobody knows how well it's going to be received. Nobody knows what the box office is going to do, and if that's even going to matter, because there's all of this reinvention that's happening around DC properties. So as fun as this movie might be for people, and I don't know if it's going to hit for everybody, by the way, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be maybe a bit put off by some of the comedic choices and some of the visual choices in this movie, but I also think that there are going to be tons and tons of people that are very entertained by this. My family was. I do want to see this again because there are lots of little details to catch, and this was clearly made with so much love. But I don't know if I need more from Ezra Miller's take on The Flash. I don't know. It's such a weird release, isn't it? It's a weird release, but it's a solid movie. I'm going to give The Flash an 8 out of 10.